Get me one of those fancy lines.
Good morning. Hi, welcome to Marketing Moms. I didn't warn Anastasia before I hit live. Welcome to Marketing Moms. We are Ann and Anastasia, and we are going to talk about marketing for the next however many weeks, hopefully the next year at least. We're going to talk about marketing from a human standpoint is how I've been saying it. You think that's right?
I think so.
So I do want to remind you before we start that we would love you to subscribe. You can subscribe over at YouTube, at Brennan Annie at YouTube. And we are talking making marketing easy. That's our whole goal here. So if you have questions, ask them. Tell us, what you think of the show. Anything you leave in the comments, we can read over on the right-hand side of our screen, and maybe we put it up here. But maybe what you do is give us an idea for what we're going to talk about next week or the week after. We do have an agenda that goes through, what did we say? How many weeks?
26 weeks.
26 weeks. Mm-hmm. So we know what we're talking about for that long, but we can be persuaded. If you have something, you have a question that we're like, oh, that's a good question, then maybe we'll talk about that. Today, we're going to talk about branding. So as we do, I want to make sure you know that you can ask questions. Ask the questions and we'll answer them. But branding for us, actually, Anastasia, you explain branding a little bit because I do a lot of the talking. So how do you describe branding when you talk to our clients?
We really need to assign who's talking about what beforehand.
Yeah.
We are very off the cuff. Let's see how this goes kind of people. But okay, so branding is who you are. It's what you want people to know about you, know about your brand, and I feel like I'm so on the spot.
Well, it's your logo and your colors.
Yes, your logo, your colors. Yes.
That's what everybody thinks it is.
Yes, but it's not just that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, it's this whole, people think that it is only your logo and your colors and, what's on your mug. But it's not, even the logo really needs to be standing for something, why would you design it in the way that you've designed it? I mean, there's so many things that go into it. And we're going to talk about this further, but what your company stands for, what emotions you want to evoke when people say your brand, those are the kinds of things that go into the brand.
Well, and we work for graphic designers, if we're going to talk about logos real quick before we jump into the real meat of the brand, people do logos based on, they're like, oh, we're an electrician, we should have a lightning bolt, or we're a plumber, we should have a pipe, or, they have these different things instead of thinking about what do you stand for and what problems do you solve. And so like you look at our logo, and our logo is it's up in the screen, but it's a swirl, right? There's a swirl behind ASMM, and it's because marketing is everything, right? It's everything. It's not just one thing that you do. It's all of these things that you do. And as you were talking, it occurred to me, you're your brand. If you're a small business, you are your brand. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't have a personal, unless you are very, very incognito, you do not have a personal life as a small business owner. Mm-hmm. In order to run a small business, people need to know who you are, and your brand is your personality and what you do and what you say. And some people learn that the hard way.
But I don't think that that's just true just for small business. I think that's true for any business size. We see, you look at all the bigger companies as well, and what they're doing in their personal life does impact the what people think of their business, right? So, you can't look at, actually, here's a great example. We're watching a show right now, my husband and I, and it is produced by the Weinstein Company. So I'm like, oh, they're still around, after what he, and because that name evokes what happened in his personal life.
Right. Exactly.
So I think that there's, things, these are things that you need to think about.
Absolutely.
And also, and I'll probably should have said this later, but you can't have two different personas.
Oh, because it comes through, right?
There's no way you can hide who you are. So, we talked, we'll talk about core values in a minute, but, once you decide on those for your business, you need to live them.
Right. Right.
Or you choose core values that already describe you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You can't say my core values are, you know, or my brand is serious and stayed, stayed, is that a term, stayed? If you're just the class clown and you're always doing something silly and goofy, right? If you want your business to have a very serious front, then you have to have that very serious front about you, otherwise it's going to show through. That's not a bad thing. Just, you don't have to choose something that you think should be your brand. You can choose what means the most to you. So like for us, we'll talk about core values now. One of the most important things for your brand is to understand who you are, right? So for us, our core values here are authenticity and gratitude. And it came from me. I am about the most authentic person you can get. I don't hide anything. I got no secrets. I'm just going to say it how it is. If I'm angry, my face shows it. If I'm happy, my face shows it. So authenticity is really important, and gratitude, because I'm honestly grateful for every single thing. And my husband thinks I'm, I've told you the story before, but we go to Maine and we would ride the same loop over and over. And every time I'd come around the corner, I'd go, it's so great. And he's like, you're the most enthusiastic person I know. And it's because it is so great. And I'm so grateful to be able to see it every time. So, but that runs through everything we do in our business as well. So when we have our branding meetings with our clients, we ask them a lot of questions. And usually I'm asking all the questions, but what is the question that I ask that you usually think, oh, this is my favorite one. This is one I really want to know.
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I think that's changed recently, and it was as a result of Stardust. And I know we mentioned Stardust last week. They're like our most recent client that we've onboarded. But when you were asking her about her the adjectives,
right? 5 adjectives that describe your business.
And like when she described that, and you know what, maybe it changes every time depending on the client, because I do think that it just depends. But I really, for whatever reason, that resonated with me the other day, and I was thinking, oh, I like that. I mean, I do content creation. I don't do a ton right now, but those are the things that you need to think of and have in your mind when you're creating content. Yeah. And so I did like that question.
Well, and I like it for her. She answered in a way that was really, she's a stylist. So for her, she's really thought these things through. Whereas a lot of people we ask and they're like truth, honesty, blah, 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 right? And you're like, okay, well, everybody appreciates those things, but what are the things that really describe your business? And she used words like sparkly, or what are some of the words? Sparkly, warm. Yes.
I think laid back was also one. I think, and maybe it's because we've known Stacey for a little while before we started working with her, and it was like, oh, I feel like she's very authentic to her. Like her brand for the business is very authentic to who she is. And so I like that. I like that she was able to verbalize who she is. Absolutely. I probably can't do the same thing for myself, but.
Yeah, well, it's hard sometimes to do that. And so we send out for us, and actually you can sit down and do it. We can send you, if you really want the questions, ask us, we'll send them to you. We'll send you the list of the questions. But I think when you don't take the time to really think about it, then you give these halfway answers. And what you may find is that what describes you is different. So think about the things your client tells you. That's how I would answer that question. What do your clients say about you? Right? And maybe one word answers are just not the best. When you say adjectives, describe yourself in an adjective, it's harder. But do think about what are the things your clients tell you, because that's going to explain your brand a lot.
I think some people are afraid to ask their clients what they think too. Like I think that small business owners, and those who help the small business owner often have this feeling, we talked about this before, the imposter syndrome, and I think that that's what's so scary about these questions, right? It's having to put these things in your face and like really evaluate like what your audience is thinking, what your customers are thinking, and what you think of yourself and how they mesh. Like, are they the same? Are they not the same? You know, it's a difficult, I think it's a difficult thing to think about. You know, like some people, you know, we have a couple of clients right now that we're working with from the ground up, and we're helping them get everything put together before the marketing actually begins.
Absolutely.
And so that's a little bit different process, you know, because now they're being confronted with these things from the beginning before they even go to market. Whereas with people that have been around for a few years, it's something that they're not necessarily willing to look at.
Well, and maybe they don't even know, like, or maybe they've been doing it one way and they're like, but that really isn't representative of who we are, or I don't really want to redo my logo, or I don't. So I'm thinking about Sunday right now. So we're working with a company called Sunday PC. They have not launched yet. We're really excited about them.
I wasn't going to name them. I thought that we weren't allowed to.
So, but it's awesome because when we created the name, and it's Sunday as in an ice cream sundae, but they're a PC company. And we did that. We can't help them come up with the name together. We worked together with this. But we did it because when we asked him what he stood for, he talked about family. He talked about the ease of buying a computer, right? But he also talked about how they wanted to be fun, and they wanted it to be something that you were excited to sit on your desk instead of a great big box. It's like this big. The little thing is like that big, tiny. And so it was neat to have him define what he wants this to be before he really gets started. Because so many of us start a business and then go, I don't know what we're about, right? I don't know what we really stand for. And so it does make a difference. Actually, speaking of standing for, I want to kind of take a step back, and we didn't talk about this before we went on the air, so you don't know I'm going to pull this on you. But one of the things that we do at ASMM is we have a charity called Burgers and Bans for Suicide Prevention. And yeah, so this weekend, Anastassia and I spent the weekend or Saturday at the Navy Marine Corps Stadium for the Annapolis Out of the Darkness Walk. And that is a huge part of our brand, right? So it's one of the things we stand for is community, really, and not just mental health, but all community, and being a part of that community in a bigger way. So that part occurred to me too as we were talking, that matters.
Yeah.
Right.
It is. It was a great day. And there were so many people out. It was really, it's sad in one way because you know that everybody that's there has been impacted in some way.
Right.
And so it can be very mentally exhausting. But this way that they did it this time with the staggered walking time decreased that a little bit for me. And it was great because people were out celebrating the lives of the people that were lost or the people that have struggled and that they're trying to support, you know. So it was a great event. They did a really good job.
It really was. One of the things I have to tell you, I hadn't noticed, or maybe I noticed and we hadn't talked about, but one of the things that really hit me hard this year, and maybe it was because of the staggered start, so you had teams coming in together, is some teams, they have been coming for 5 years, and so each year it gets a little smaller and a little smaller. And so what was really overwhelming to me was to see the teams who came in with so many people. I can't remember the one. We saw one group come in all purple, and it was very, very big. And we knew because we've been here before that means that's somebody who was recently lost.
Yeah. There were people in t-shirts. There was one that had a t-shirt from 1988.
Yes.
So I think that there were, and we met a lot of people that have known somebody that it's happened a while, and this is just part of their annual honoring of them.
Exactly. But seeing one of the things where I was going with that is seeing the big groups, and you think about somebody who dies by suicide. And I know this is completely off topic, but I do think it's an important conversation. you see those gigantic groups and you think this person who died by suicide, they're not selfish. They feel like they are completely alone. They
Mhm.
feel like nobody cares. And that's what depression tells them, right?
Mhm.
Nobody cares. You're completely alone. You don't matter. And here you go with a group of 100 people walking in who cared enough to not only, think about you and miss you, but to show up at this event and raise money and walk. It says a lot about where your mental state of mind is where your state of mind is when you say, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Mhm.
That was really sad. It was really sad. Sorry, I got off topic, but only because it does matter what you stand for. So that's part of it. But I also want to talk about pain points, because sometimes we'll say pain points and people don't really understand what is the problem you're solving for your customer. What problem? Somebody said to me, I asked them this question. They said, well, I need more money in my pocket. That's the problem I'm solving. I'm like, no, not the problem you're solving for yourself. What is the problem you're solving for your customer?
Yeah.
Right? And it's not always just, oh, well, I'm cleaning their chimney,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I actually did a presentation. Ann and I are both in BNI, and so it was my turn to do my presentation this week. Ann always creates the presentations because she presents before me, so I just copy and, and reuse her work. But I did, when I got to this question of understanding your brand, I mean, this is what the presentation was about, actually, understanding your brand, and talking about pain points. One that came to my mind, because they're a client, but we're also a client of theirs, is BL Technical. And the reason is because before we started working with them, anybody needed anything computer-wise, they would come to me. I was like the handy employee. And so there were times where I'd be Googling and trying to figure stuff out. And so when we're creating content for him, I know exactly what to say because I am his customer. I am the person that is, what is my pain point? I need time to work on the business, not try and figure out why an update didn't happen or why some security thing isn't working.
Or so while our Google Drive app is not showing up in the top.
That's right. Like, where's the Google Drive? So mine's there. So that's the kind of thing that's the pain points, right? So it's not what he's doing for himself, because you're right. People do think that that's what we mean when we say pain point. They're like, oh yeah, I need more clients. It's like, no, it doesn't matter what you want. In your marketing, in your branding, you have to identify your audience and how you're helping them. Like by giving them time. We had a landscaper, and we have a landscaper client, and we had a whole campaign was, what do you want to do with your weekend? Because it's not mow the lawn.
Yeah, exactly. You could mow the lawn, or you could go, paddleboarding, or you could go see your kid play soccer. So, when, actually, I think a lot of times what people are giving back, especially in the service industry, is time. Right? In the fashion industry, you're giving somebody more than a pair of jeans. You're giving them what they feel like in those in that pair of jeans. Definitely. So, speaking of that, actually, that's another great question to ask yourself. What does your customer feel when they use your product? Right? Is it relief that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a fire at my house because I had my chimney taken care of? Or is it pride because your kid's going to do better in school because you hired the right tutoring service? Or is it relief again because you found, if you're going to a therapist, what is that therapist given to you? They may be giving you a peace of mind. They're giving you somebody who you can talk to so you can finally let go of the stuff that's in here, right? So so that problem you're solving may not be that you're selling them an apple.
Yeah, definitely. So my parents had a fish and chip shop. And when I was 16, they let me get a job somewhere else because I didn't want to work with them all the time. Granted, I still worked at the fish and chip shop, but I got a job at a coffee shop. And I loved that job because everybody that came in was always happy to see me, because they knew that when they had that cup of coffee, they could sit down and just enjoy it for a minute, and the caffeine would help them, so that's kind of what I think of. We have one of our clients is Baltimore Coffee and Tea, and making, that's something for them, right? Like, it's, what do you get when you pick up your, I mean, this is tea, it's not coffee, but when I have my cup of tea in the morning, I know it's like, oh, and so that's something that you're giving them, right?
I will literally say, oh, yay, sometimes when I grab my cup and I take a sip, and I will find myself going, oh, yay.
Yeah.
Awesome, right? So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that reminds me actually of a study I read about Febreze, the fabric, the thing that makes fabric smell better, or room smell better. And they did a what do you call that? I'm so sorry. I'm drawing a blank. I said marketing made simple. It's because my mind is sometimes so simple.
Focus group.
Focus group. But they took they would take people, they'd say, go in this room, clean the room, and then use make sure you use the Febreze, and we're going to see what your reaction is as you're doing it. And what they found was that almost every time they would spray it, and then there would be this calm, and they'd kind of close their eyes and be like, oh, now it's finished. It smells good, so it must be clean.
Yeah.
And so it was that feeling, that last feeling of, oh, it smells good, so it must be clean. And that's, I think, something that we need to think about when we're talking about brand. Our brand is so much more than that logo and that color. It's so much more than that. It really is what you're making them feel, what problem you're solving for them. It's who you are and what you stand for. It's so many more things. What other things, as we're going through this, I'm trying to think of some of the other things that you should consider when you're thinking about your brand, even if you're just starting. I thought about competition, right?
Yes. What your competition's doing, and what their logo looks like, what their colors are. You do need to, what website, like, there are so many things you need to think of. But when you're looking at branding, I think my brother-in-law has just started his own business in Arizona. And so, when they came to him with, tons of logo designs, and that's the kind of thing that I talked with him about. I was like, okay, so you need to look at the industry and look and see what the colors are being used, and the simplicity. I mean, even the simplicity. I kind of went back to when Baltimore Graphics did our logo for Burgers and Bands, and talked to us about the simplicity of not having too many colors, being able to embroider it with only one color if you needed to, just those kinds of things. And those were the things that I was talking to him about as well, because when you have something that's super complicated, like ours, it does, but we're not putting it on shirts, and we rarely use it apart from digital. It could make a difference. If you're a company where you're either printing a lot of shirts or embroidering a lot of shirts, like, those things are costs that are going to be incurred. So those are things that you definitely need to think about. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, you don't want to look just like everybody else in the industry, right? So if you're especially, gosh, think about electricians. There are 30, what did I count? Last count, 38 electricians within 5 miles of my office.
Yeah.
So you want your logo to stand out, right? And you want your branding to stand out. And let's think about that too. A lot of people will do a logo and they'll forget about the rest of what that looks like, right? So then you just got a logo stuck on the side of a truck. But what if you go to somebody who really works with branding and works with creating a branding package for you? Then they'll create the logo and they'll say, this is how it's going to fit on the truck, and this is the other design that will go with your truck when you're wrapping it. And think about it. Actually, if you haven't thought about it, go out and drive today and think about the vans you see and which ones really stick in your mind. I'll tell you, Haas and Company, Haas and Sons, that absolutely sticks in my mind when I think about this.
Yeah.
Right? So it matters a lot.
It does. All right. And it also matters if you have fonts and the colors. Like, you need to know these things. You need to have the specific colors copied somewhere. Like, there's codes that there's all different kinds of codes. You need to know those color codes, so that when you're using and you're creating content, you know what that is, so that you can do it. I mean, if you look at our screen right here, you can see that the blue matches the blue in our logo. Like, you're not going to use a different blue. You're going to make sure that it's cohesive, and that's important.
Yeah. It occurred to me that one of the things to think about when you're creating, if you're just starting a business, even if you're like, even if you're just like me, right? I started my business. I did a horrible job of branding in the beginning because honestly, I started this business thinking, well, I'll get a couple clients and then I'll get a real job. But if you don't think that that's what you're doing, if you're like, I'm starting a business and I want to see where it can go, assume from the beginning that you're going to be a bigger company.
Mhm.
So when you have 10 employees, what do you want that place to look like? When you have enough people coming to you that you're maybe having TV ads, then what do you want that logo to look like? So I really discourage you from designing it yourself unless you are a graphic designer. Don't
Mhm.
design it yourself. Have somebody else do it. And if you are a graphic designer and you do design it yourself, show it to people you don't know
Mhm.
before you put it on your things, because it does matter. It really, really does. So, all right, I want to talk because we are coming up on our time. So I want to talk about what we're going to talk about next week and why it's important. So next week we're going to talk about websites. Websites. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, I just talked to an architect who does beautiful work and has no websites. And I told him, I was like, I've been looking at redoing my kitchen. And I found several kitchen companies that don't have a website, and I skip over them because I want to see the work you do. I am not going to hire you if I can't see the work you do. So websites matter a lot because people are coming to them to figure out who you are and really get to know you,
Mhm.
right? But most people spend no time on them. So next week we're going to talk about being intentional with your website, how to create it, how to make sure you're paying attention to it going forward, and all of the things that will make you stand out, how you're going to use your website for marketing. So that's what we're doing next week. Anastasia, you have anything else to add?
Do because you made that comment about thinking of the bigger picture and where you want your company to be, and we have definitely been doing that for the last few years. Like, just we're thinking in terms of growth and where we're going to be. And one of the things that I just want to reiterate, since we're talking about branding, is that your branding isn't just for your marketing. It is for your company culture. It's for all of that. Like, it all intertwines. And so when you're thinking about your brand, make sure, you're thinking about it across the board. What is my marketing going to look like? But then what do I want my employees to feel like? Because
Absolutely.
what they say about your company really is going to matter as well. So it has to all work together.
We should talk about that. And I know that's not on our list, but we should add that to our list of internal marketing,
That's
because internal marketing matters a lot. And so my son goes to Duke Ellington School of the Arts in DC. And it is really amazing. This school is really amazing at the way they market within the school, not without, but within the school, and the things they say. So you'll hear them talking and they're like, oh, you're at Duke Ellington now. So a good example was Zane has hurt his hands and he's a guitarist. And the teacher said to him, you're at Duke Ellington now. So your body matters. You've got to start thinking about how you're taking care of your body as a guitarist. And that internal, you're at Duke Ellington now, and this is what it means, is huge. So I think that's something we should talk about going forward. But until we do that, it's something you should be thinking about going forward. Make sure you're thinking about, do your employees know what your core values are? Do they know what you stand for? Do they know, if you do have a cause, why do you have that cause? Why does it mean something to you? Why isn't that you picked suicide prevention over the dog shelter? Right? What is it that means something to you, so that they can then say that same thing to other people, right? But they can also feel like they're standing up for something, right? They are a part of something bigger than themselves, and you've built that into your culture. So do think about that going forward. Websites next week. If you have questions between now and then, send them to us and we'll answer those specifically. And I forgot to ask you, Anastasia, how your weekend was as we
Oh,
did this.
I was good. We went to the walk on Saturday, and that was nice. my oldest, it's her birthday tomorrow. She's going to be 15. So we took her friends out for dinner. And then we ended up going to the Renaissance Festival yesterday.
Oh, nice.
It was my first time. I'll probably go back. It was very interesting.
Key lime pie?
No, I didn't.
Oh, it's so
I thought
good.
about it. But then, you know, it was kind of, we had some other stuff. And I thought about it because there was like a key lime pie dipped in white chocolate, and then there was a key lime pie. And I was like, I don't know what one. And then I got sidetracked and forgot all about it.
Yeah, that happens. So,
but it was fun. You know, I read the blog from Jen Schaub first.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that one went up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, I had no idea that this went on for months here. And like, it's a whole little world.
It is. And people come from across the country to go to it.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And it's not an expensive day. It was very affordable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I went to the walk. I came home. We went to see Tony Snow, which is actually, I had no idea about this. It was at Arena Stage, and it's a play about Tony Snow. No, not Tony Stone. Sorry. Tony Stone, who it was an African-American woman who played in the Negro Leagues.
Oh, yeah.
And it's her story. I mean, she's, I think, the only African-American woman, or only woman to play in the Negro League. So it was good. It was really good. I will say, we've talked about this before, as a white woman, sometimes I think, oh, I'm not prejudiced. And then I watch something like that and I think, yeah, I used to think that, or that's something I've thought. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. So it was in some ways an uncomfortable show, and parts of it was uncomfortable because I had to re-examine the way I think. So that was interesting. Yesterday we did something fun. I haven't told you about yet, but we went. Zane had his. He does practice with Blues Alley Youth Orchestra. And so Blaze and I decided we'd go down and we'd just walk around. And so we walked in some open houses. That was not because we're looking for houses, but because it's fun to go walking through open houses. And then he had a group of kids over last night. So we sat in the front yard and listened to kids playing jazz. So that was fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But busy weekend, though. I didn't do any.
I know. I did go grocery shopping because, you know, I got 3 kids. I got to feed them. But
yeah, exactly.
It was a very busy weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you who are listening to this, actually, it's not a bad way to end it this way, because I know people drop off, and if they drop off, they miss our personal stuff, and if they stay on, they get to add to it. So that's not bad. All right, everybody. I hope we see you next week. We are fine-tuning this each week, and I think going forward, we'll have a better idea of where it's going to go. But our idea really is to have these conversations that we have in our own office, right? Have conversations that we have with our clients, because I think those are the things you're going to walk away with, and you're going to say, oh. So I'm hoping that I'm going to hang up this call, and that you're going to message me, and you're going to say, Ann, what is that list of questions? What do I need to know about my business? If you want to do that, that's great. We'll give you the list of questions. If you're like, I want to sit down with your team for an hour and go over this list of questions so I understand what I stand for, and I can put it to work in my business, then let us know that too. We have a package for that. You can come in and sit down with us for an hour, pick our brain, and figure out how to take your brand and use it in your marketing. So that's a goal of ours as well. And you can reach us at ASMMdigital.com. So, all right, guys, we will see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.